When I was 10 years old, I read the fantasy novel Lord Fowl's Bane by Stephen R. Donaldson. It tells the story of a man from our own world suffering from the after effects of leprosy and a broken marriage and family who is magically transported to a fantasy world known only as the Land. It wasn't the first foray I had into fantasy and even, by extension, scientific and sci-fi-ish ideas. But it was the first one that really got me into the idea of world building and the idea of character. It was meant for an adult audience, and unfortunately, being 10 years old, many of the things depicted in the novel flew right over my head. There's a lot of graphic violence, sexual violence as well, including a lot of philosophical ideas around what that violence means and what the idea of freedom and belief means as well. Whew, you can say that again. There's some dark stuff in that book. Oof. Look, hey, sorry, you don't have to comment. Your job is to kind of just operate the camera, make sure it's recording, maybe I'm in focus if you can, and that's kind of it. Sorry, look, it's my first time at this. I promise, won't speak again. No worries, fine. Look, sorry about that. So what I was kind of trying to say is that this really inspired in me the idea of, storytelling and telling my own stories and thinking up of my own worlds and creations and things like that. And very shortly afterwards, I was writing my own fantasy derivative inspired stories. And then as I grew older and read different genres and contemporary fiction, I started writing my own stories in every kind of aspect, in the sense of genre, in the sense of tone, just experimenting and learning to fall in love with how you use words to tell stories, how you use characters, and how you use plot. Sorry, am I boring you? Oh, no, yeah, look, I've just had a long day, so it's like a bit tired. Sorry about that. Thank you. Anyway, so that was how I first discovered my love of writing and wanting to tell stories in that kind of way. When I was 14 years old, I discovered the band, like many maybe young people do, Metallica. And this inspired me to want to pick up and learn the guitar so I could play loud, distorted riffs like them. At that time, at that age, they were kind of my heroes. And I wanted to know as much about them as I could and play their songs and become like them, play in bands, do that whole band thing. So I convinced my dad to buy me a amp and guitar setup, and I started to play those loud and distorted guitar riffs like my heroes in Metallica, except I played them very badly. You can say that again. Hey, look, I'm telling the story here. I mean, I'm happy for you to chip in, I guess, but look, really, I think it's better if you just maybe hold all your commentary until the end. Sorry. My bad. Continue. Anyway, I didn't quit. I kept playing, and slowly but surely, I got better. Was I the world's greatest? No. And to be honest, I wasn't really aiming for that. But I was capable, and I started to play in bands. We were horrible at first, and then the band slowly got better the older I got and the more I learned about my instrument. Shortly after that, we were playing gigs around Melbourne, and I met some of the greatest people that I've ever met, and I had some really great, fantastic experiences playing live. Well, even the times you just play to 2 or 3 people in a room. Are you saying there's something wrong with that? Because I'd like to see you get up and play in general, let alone to an actual audience. Hey, look, my bad. Just an observation. Carry on. Sorry about that. So that was music. So far in my young life, I encountered wanting to learn how to tell stories, wanting to learn how to make, create, and play music, and now came the great third love of my, I guess, creative life, you could say, was filmmaking, and that came along in the form of a little film called Pulp Fiction. Now, it's a probably very standard answer, very much in the same way as Metallica. And even though, Metallica and Pulp Fiction I loved growing up and they inspired me to take the next steps, it is very interesting trying to revisit and go back and listen to the music or watch even Tarantino's films, which, I'm not as into as I used to be. But at 17 years old, watching Pulp Fiction for the first time, and I think that might have been the very first Tarantino film I saw, which, and it kind of just blew me away. I remember, watching it on some copied VCR. I think a friend of mine from high school had actually taped it from when it aired on Australian television. So there was like ad breaks and everything like that. But even like regardless of those things interrupting the, progress of the film, after that final scene ends in the diner, I remember getting up because it's a long film, so I had to go pee. And then I was in the bathroom, washing my hands, and I remember looking into the mirror and thinking, you know what? You could do something like this. I reckon you could write something like this. Wait, are you comparing yourself to Tarantino? You don't even like his stuff anymore. I'm not comparing myself to Tarantino. I'm just saying that when I watched his film, it inspired me to think that I could do something similar. And that it got me into screenwriting, and that got me into filmmaking. That's all I'm trying to say. Oh, right, whatever. I've lost interest anyway. So, after watching that film and feeling quite inspired, I started working with some friends to make some, I would write some scripts, make some short films, but obviously I wanted to learn more. I'd obviously been writing for a while because I'd been inspired by, the fantasy and fiction books of my youth. But, okay, I can write a script maybe, like badly obviously, but, I can understand the idea of a story. But then how do you make the other elements work? Like, how does a camera work? What does the boom operator do? All those kind of things. So I enrolled into a kind of video and filmmaking course at a uni to kind of learn how the sausage is made, I guess, and to learn, how do you actually make a film? It's very different making crappy little films with a camcorder, making Tarantino rip-off films and not quite knowing what you're doing, when you're then getting instruction to be like, here's why this works, or here's how it can work. And then trying to partner that with your creativity and imagination. It really got me into the idea of making things in a video film format. And learning these skills was a really great benefit to me, because I ended up using them in jobs I had, from being a camera operator to working in video journalism and documentary kind of work. Is a really great asset to understand how these things work, so I could use them and actually make a career out of that and learn how to produce and to write scripts and to film stuff and to interview people. It was really, really great. So these really three great loves, writing, music and filmmaking, was something that throughout my life so far has been three things I always want to read about, be interested in, and that I have a really great passion for. But a lot of the time when, I read about people from these industries that I really admired, musicians, writers, filmmakers, it always felt like, when they talked about stories of their success, that they always said quotes that went something along like this. I gave it my all. I gave it 100%, didn't think about anything else but, the ABC of one of those things. I just, consumed it. I, ate it for breakfast, I ate it for lunch, I ate it for dinner, all those kind of like examples that people give about when they're really passionate about something. And that kind of makes me think sometimes, I'm like, I'm an amateur at all of those things really. I've worked in some fields, I've got experience, but, I'm not, I'm not a musician for a living. I guess I'm a writer for a living because I work in a comms job, but it's not fiction. It's very commercialized kind of work. And then the filmmaking, well, I'm just doing a lot of corporate videos and that kind of stuff, which, okay, I guess it's the field, but it's not the dream. It's not that creative dream I had when, I sat down and watched Pulp Fiction for the first time. That's not a commercialized corporate video made for a client. I've never attacked any one of those three things 100% because I'm kind of interested in all three of them. And I'm sure there's people out there who can juggle and do all three really well and are successful at it. But I feel like in order to be really successful, get what you want, is it a case of like, what do I really want? And then going after it. Guess what I'm trying to say is like, these three things that I love, should I have to, do I drop two of them in order to be, really succeed at one. If you want to be boring. Do you mean if I want to succeed? I mean, look, is success even what you really want? You don't seem to be doing all that much to really go after it. All you do is kind of talk a lot and analyze it and speak about it. I mean, what are you actually doing? What? I mean, look, what do you guys do when you're trying to balance different things like Andy here's trying to do? I mean, do you crumble like he's doing right now and doesn't have the words to say what he means? Or do you actually make some tough decisions? Hey, I can make tough decisions. Yeah? Yeah, of course I can. I just need to figure out what I really want. Which is what exactly? Can I get back to you on that? Look, I'm sure some of you guys watching maybe have this conundrum or maybe have these thoughts. I mean, what do you guys think about it? You know, because sometimes I wonder if I'm just being a little bit too unfair on myself. I mean, isn't life, meant to be full of variety and different types of things? Look, sometimes I feel like maybe I'm not doing enough or maybe I don't really know what I'm doing. I'm just kind of clutching at straws, hoping for the best. Is this something that you guys experience? Is this something that you daily battle with about being a creative and maybe being a creative who doesn't quite know what their niche is and doesn't quite know what their strengths are? I mean, please comment below and feel free to discuss this with me, because I feel like it's something where someone like me who maybe wants to be found in multiple ways, do I just pick one and follow that through? Is variety great, or does it mean that I'll never get to a certain level of success that I want if I don't kind of just choose one thing and focus? So please comment below and let me know your thoughts on that. And look, thanks very much for listening to me rant. Andy out.